All right, welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the second track for the first day of the Retail Innovation Asia Virtual Conference 2022. So, this is the digital driven growth track. And to kick it off, we have a keynote by Nathan Luther Villa, Chief Marketing Officer at IT Group, on retail's hybrid transformation, a connected digital experience. Are you in or out?
Morning. Nathan Villa from IT Group Inc. We are covering the Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia. I would like to welcome everybody in this Retail Innovation Asia Conference 2022. Thank you for choosing the digital driven growth track this morning for day one. ITG is in the business of helping retail organization transition towards a hybrid transformation to maintain a connected digital experience. Before we start, I would like to remind everybody if you can scan our QR code to get a chance to win Garmin smartwatches. I would also like to encourage you to visit our booth for more prizes. So let's start. Let's talk about the retail's digital transformation journey. Retailers were challenged to assess their ability and capability to automate for the past 48 months, regardless was if this was from pre-COVID, the new normal, emerging timelines. There are waves and forces that put us where we are today. One is COVID-19. It accelerated the transformational journey across geographies and industries. Due to its impact, consumer behavior changed and became more individualized. There's the rise of natives. The younger generation rose with a propensity towards digital transactions. While the information easily flows at their fingertips, this brought about the demand for personalization within products and services that adheres to experiential engagement. The third one is the emergence of accelerated technology, which basically is the exponential growth pre-pandemic. There was an explosion on the consumption of data dramatically that increased, and the pace is very much unparalleled. This results to unending accessibility in borderless economies. The fourth one is what we're experiencing today. Every business is trying to transition to the hybrid model, which is very much fast accelerated. Digital adoption has taken a quantum leap at both the organization and the industry levels. The hybrid model has blurred physical and digital experiences from shopping orders, online interactions, and face to face store purchases. These forces move us together within the retail industry since we're all plagued with disinformation and in dire need to create solutions to our social problems. The question is, how do we prepare and maintain a digitally connected experience? Retailers must move beyond cost cutting to embrace a comprehensive transformation. As a retailer, you will have to put an effective digital transformation strategy in place that meets the changing demands of consumer and the marketplace. It's all about the customer success model and its transformational pillars. I would like to talk about strategy as one of those pillars. Customer success strategy needs to be driven through a continuous improvement model in order to keep up with the rapid evolution of variables, including your product roadmap, pricing models, market dynamics. You need to define and strategically understand the initiatives so that you can prioritize and pivot your workforce as you need to support your operations for a next disruption level. Technology is the second one. Consider the capabilities of your team. While you infuse strategy and the ability of technology to act as a catalyst towards achieving your goals of customer success through automation and digitization, you need to do more with less with the right technology enablers. The last one is customer success data. Executing the right action at the right time with the right customer per the design of your customer model is dependent on the availability and the readiness of your customer data. Comparing the results of your information and data from your product will give you a thorough snapshot of your customer's health, and you would be able to determine if they're in fact deriving value from your products and services. As you compete for new customers, improve your relationships with your suppliers, focus on the growth of your organization, it pays to have cloud ERP, as the technology at the heart of all of it. It will help you facilitate your goals and enable your businesses. So, where are you in the buyer's journey? Have you already invested in a technology platform? Or are you currently considering investing with the right partner to roll out your plans? Or clearly you're off the grid, that you don't understand, or you clearly it's not just in your timeline right now. We've identified differences between businesses that were leaders, followers, and laggards. And we found that in our increasingly competitive business retail market, leading companies are overwhelmingly embracing technology in order to get ahead of their competition. We now try to understand what leaders do differently. In all areas of the retail business, consumers have become more demanding and better informed today, and they've realized that they have a lot of choices and options to choose different brands. You need a customer success transformation model to achieve a future ready retail business. I wanted to start with you three types of partnership with ITG. The first one, next slide please, is Novell, which focus on customer centricity. To ensure business continuity and customer satisfaction during the pandemic, Novell saw the need of a system that can give them real-time visibility of their inventory, order fulfillment, and customer data to achieve a seamless operations that can enable them to expand the borders of Malaysia. ITG together with NetSuite proposed Cloud ERP Financials to help them streamline their operations from one end to another, focusing on customer centricity and improving their operational engagement. The second one is Better Coffee. They were highlighting a lot about operational efficiency. Prior to the pandemic, Better Coffee was already expanding their business horizons, but was very much hampered with no proper governance as their business was growing. Without access to real-time data, they are subjected to many business limitations from inventory, reports, and time-consuming manual processes. Better Coffee is now confident to expand without limits with the NetSuite Cloud ERP that can enable accurate business decision-making. They were able to navigate through the pandemic with a cloud ERP platform to overcome barriers across different channels, industries, and different regions. The last one is Navco. They were focused on omni-channel experience. To support their goal to be a major driving force in bringing the world's best and most relevant innovation, Navco saw the need for a platform that can help them consolidate their data from their different revenue channels to ensure business liquidity and ensure customer satisfaction. ITG implemented a full suite cloud ERP to automate their accounting and their financial backend, inventory management, and customer relationship management. Navco is now enabled to focus on customer retention and achieve overall customer satisfaction with a centralized omni-channel experience powered by a cloud ERP platform. Now, we need to supercharge the success of your customer strategy operations. Retail needs to be reimagined and remodeled. By bringing together this powerful blend from strategy, technology, and data all in one, you will ensure that your customer success operations are focused on delivering measurable value to your customers repeatedly and at beyond scale. Today, get started with your digital transformation. The easiest way to initiate and conclude digital transformation in the retail industry is to find the right partner, a partner with a technical understanding and the industry know-how that can assist you in transforming your business inside and out. ITG is a leader in retail digital transformation projects with purpose-built industry-specific solutions across retail verticals. Our team has deep experience around operations, relationship management, business analytics, and user collaboration. As the ASEAN leader in Oracle NetSuite Cloud ERP implementation, our team understands how critical innovation is for today's retail industry. If you have any project ideas in your mind right now, but are looking for technology experts, venture with ITG, and we will guide you throughout your journey of digital transformation in the retail market segment. So thank you for joining this catch-up keynote experience, and we hope that you attend and visit our booth to answer our survey and claim your digital prices. Thank you and have a good day.
All right. Thank you, Nathan. As Nathan said, if you have any questions for him or for any of his teammates, IT Group has a booth over at the booth section, and you can catch Nathan there together with his colleagues who have prizes awaiting for those that will engage with him there. So up next, we have a panel discussion on leverage AI data-driven retail analytics. In this panel session, we have David Lee, Director, Talent Development, Singapore Retailers Association. We have Scott Gillies, Regional Director, Asia Pacific for Aptos. We have Danielle West, Principal Business Solutions Manager, SAS, Southeast Asia. We also have Ralph Kwee, Strategic Initiatives at PMO, Office of the CEO, Alfamart Philippines, and our moderator, Shuchi Mehta, Director, Front Office Transformation, PwC, Southeast Asia Consulting.
Thank you, Jed. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on transforming retail through analytics and data. I'm Shuchi Mehta. I'm a director in Front Office Transformation. I translate clients' customer strategy into sales, service, and marketing actions and work primarily in B2C, retail, and other cross-industry focus areas. So very happy to be with you today. We have a very eminent cast of speakers, and I'm going to quickly ask them to introduce themselves briefly. Maybe we start with you, Scott. A quick intro from you.
Thanks, Shuchi. Again, my name is Scott Gillies. I'm the Regional Director for Asia Pacific for Aptos. Started my career in the States with Manhattan Associates, moved over to Australia just over 11 years ago, have been with Revionics, an Aptos company, for the last 6.5 years. Happy to be joining you today. I've always been working with retailers on the technology side of the business. So looking forward to this panel. Thanks, Shuchi.
Thank you so much, Scott. Ralph, what about you? Can you give us an intro, please?
Hi everyone. Hi Shuchi. Thanks for having me. So I'm Ralph Kwee. I am with Alfamart, a mini market player from Indonesia. I'm also part of the SM Markets e-commerce team, which is the grocery arm of the SM Group in the Philippines. Within this capacity, I'm fortunate to work on strategic initiatives where mostly this is driven by data. I also engage our data analytics arm within the group, and previous experience include HMR, Right Cloud, Boston Consulting Group, and Grab. Thank you.
Very glad to have you here, Ralph. Danielle, over to you.
Yes, hi. My name is Danielle West, and I'm based in Bangkok. I'm the Principal Business Solutions Manager for SAS ASEAN region. Previously, I've been with Adobe for the Experience Platform as well as their Document Cloud. And then before that, I've also worked agency and client side.
Thank you so much. All right, let's get started. So for our listeners out there, we have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that 3 in 4 retailers who were surveyed actually are able to collect data and understand that it's important that they use it. The bad news is that they're not. They're not able to make best use of that data. And we know that being data-centric is not easy. And that's why we are here today. So thank you all for joining us. Let's start with the first question, really. And maybe I can ask this to you, Ralph, and then others can add on. As PwC, we conduct a global retail and consumer study, and that shows that 86% of customers are willing to pay a premium. That's up to 16% extra for a good experience. So the question is, Ralph, maybe you can start us off. How do you see the role of data and analytics evolving to drive better customer experience?
Thanks for that question. It's a good question, Shuchi. I think just taking a step back, how I see this data is that recently, for example, if you just look at shipping, usually there's free delivery, but people are always willing to pay a certain extra premium if they want to have it faster or at a certain day or a certain time. But just even taking a step, maybe, just about maybe 1 or 2 years ago with the start of the pandemic, I think it has led to taking a more focused approach about how people or how customers approach life and how they take on certain behaviors. And with these certain behaviors, it's very if you look at the data that we have, it's very data driven, right? So online has made more products available. Businesses are focusing on lowering their cost to serve with handling and delivery fees, improving their UI and UX. And all these different data points, I think they might be seen as small data points, but added up, they all contribute to the bigger picture. I think it's just figuring out how to hash out the right data, getting rid of the noise, just seeing what's relevant. It's very confusing having a large data set, but there's always a few data points that we can use, making the small steps, small gains. And I think with this, you can bring this above board and drive to decision making. I think where it goes more towards in the future is I think there is the AI opportunity. I think many organizations have already tapped into AI, but it's just not being called AI yet. And yeah, I'd like to hear more from our colleagues here in this panel about it.
Scott, can I ask you to talk on that, especially around the pricing part of this?
Yeah, I think there's two pieces to touch on there. One, there is lots of data, big data. That's the buzzword. Getting actionable insights from that data. That is where we see artificial intelligence, machine learning, and some of the advanced science that's been going into solutions over the last decade, making things easier. So obviously, computers can go through mass amounts of information much faster than humans can. How do we highlight what's most important to you as the retailer to make the best decisions? That's a big piece of where data analytics and AI come into play. And I think it's a great point about where consumers are willing to pay for different experiences, different delivery timeframes and windows. That's a big piece of pricing and how those small differences can create differences in demand. And there's AI and pricing solutions out there who take advantage of that to optimize pricing so that you're being as competitive as you can for the items that matter most to your consumers while offering the best service to them as well. And they're willing to pay a premium for some of those services.
Super, Scott. Danielle, your thoughts?
So on the pricing, I feel that so long as we make pricing, the main issue, then those are the people that we'll attract. I think oftentimes what drives people to certain brands, sometimes a premium brand or a higher price point actually is what attracts certain users. I know, I think I told you this story before, but I'd gotten, I got the High Spender of the Year award at one of the counters at Central Group. In December. I know they made a huge deal about it. They gave me a bottle of kombucha or something. And it was Aveda. Aesop, I was number 3. So apparently there were 2 other people. But those online and offline, they understand exactly what motivates me. I prefer to get free samples for when I'm at the gym or when I travel. I'm not fussed about paying a premium because I'm already at, premium price point brands. So I don't mind spending extra for it. But what I think is also interesting is the context. One of the beauties about, a lot of the solutions, and again, one of the ones that I work on is we have online and offline data. So you get the full picture, but even combining, say, mobile app data, with behavioral data. So a few years ago, I was working with a client. It was one of the largest retailers in ASEAN. And I remember we were doing a cost per install optimization strategy for them. And we had noticed that, Facebook was the absolute clear winner. However, as soon as we brought in app analytics, the story changed significantly because we looked at customer lifetime value. And what we had noticed was those users coming in through search, where they had a significantly higher customer lifetime value. And at first they were puzzled, but then, and this is where insights come in, it makes a lot of sense. You're actively looking for these brands to download that app. You're not fussed about a free offer or free shipping or, an extra gift. Whereas on Facebook or Instagram, you're basically passive. And so as you're scrolling, you'll pick something, you'll download it, but you may never use it again. And so again, it's really looking at your strategy and also understanding your customer segments and kind of what they're doing, how they're behaving, and, what their value is.
Super. And in fact, yes, customer segments, the right pricing analytics that you spoke of, even your personal story, Danielle, resonates a lot. I'm a spender myself.
Thank you.
That's a great segue. The online to offline and back to online is a great segue into our next question that I wanted to ask. Maybe, Scott, I could direct this to you to start with. Our survey, the one that I spoke of, again highlights that smartphone shopping is at a historic high. So we are seeing over 41% of customers shopping daily, if not weekly, on mobile. Yet, if you look at the flip side, retail in-store shopping has actually nearly reached pre-pandemic levels. So clearly, our customers are looking for both a experience through digital devices, but also in person and many other different types of channels. So omni-channel seems to be the way to go. How do you see the data analytics technologies enabling seamless omni-channel customer engagement, especially linking in with the store of the future?
Yeah, thanks, Shuchi. I think Danielle's story resonates a little bit here too with some of the trends we're seeing. You know, one of the pre-pandemic levels of shopping that we're seeing in certain categories like personal care, with some great brands, Aveda and Aesop there, are actually doing, you know, above what they did prior to the pandemic. And there's statistics out there, like where I live in Australia, in a 6-month period, there was 3 years of growth in omni-channel online mobile shopping. You know, so there was an inflection point where you just saw that it forced people in a way to try the online shopping and people who may not have been online shopping before. And so now what retailers need to realize, you have a great opportunity to harvest that additional information that you're gaining from the online channel, combined with what you've got from your in-store channel, to analyze and make better decisions. You know, there's obviously the pricing piece. Do you have the same price across all of your channels, or are there actually some channels where you have a premium shopper who they're looking for a certain level of service, they're looking for a certain product that may be at a different price than those who are shopping in some of your stores, especially if you have different banners or types of stores. You know, maybe some of your stores are located in more convenient locations. You know, use the data that you're able to understand about your consumers and their reactions to the offers that you put to them and the prices you put to them, to make the best offer based on where you're located, combining that offline and online data. I think the other thing that we're seeing is where is this all coming together? Even if I'm an online shopper and that's new to me, or I'm doing it much more than I used to, a lot of the time I'm still going to the store to pick up those products, you know, buy online, pick up in store. Or I may not know it, but the retailer is shipping from store to my location because that's most optimal from their network, rather than coming from a distribution center. Or sometimes there's combinations of fulfillment from distribution centers versus stores. So how do I understand where my shoppers, what are they buying from what channels? And then how can I optimize how I actually match my consumer demand to the inventory available? And that's where, you know, there's order management solutions out there today that's what they do. They include some AI analytics and machine learning to help do that more automatically, to ensure that you're able to meet the demand of your consumers where they want to get those products. But at the same time, using that digital information to ensure you're not losing profit. You don't want to increase your revenue because you offer free shipping, but then start shipping for $10 per package items that they purchased for $3.
Exactly. True. Danielle or Ralph, any of you want to add on?
So I think one of the interesting things now is that since customers are more comfortable shopping online, and again, borders and behaviors are opening back up to pre-pandemic, it'll be interesting to see what the split is and also the effect it has on the various audience segments. I think, Scott, you made a really good point about pricing and also the logistics of, you know, stock availability. And again, how we can kind of nudge behaviors, as it were, depending on, you know, what's available, or even just testing how different content resonates or different bundling, and also just kind of understanding the way users are behaving in store versus online and vice versa. So I think one of the things that I'm sure all of us are guilty of is you're in store and you're checking pricing, you know, on your app or, you know, on a phone to see if there's anything more competitive or, you know, again, stock availability. So if I'm in one particular location and I want to see if it's available online because they've run out, you know, and I think this also kind of comes into play of where we can effectively kind of engineer serendipity or really create beautiful customer experiences, is knowing if a customer is using certain products on the regular and they have an app installed, and they're in the location and that's not available, even just sending a notification, to say, hey, we noticed you're in store. Your favorite products aren't here. However, you can order them online, or there is a place, down the road. And again, I think it's about buy-in and having that conversation with your customers to see if it's something that they want or if it would be viewed as intrusive.
Super. Ralph, your thoughts?
Yeah, so if I may add, I think from a retailer's hat on, or retailer's perspective, I think three things that come to mind is, firstly, is creating that customer loyalty, because initially they'd only buy offline, and now being able to buy online, it increases either the number of transactions or increases the basket size. I think second, also with this omni-channel, as Danielle said, was now for us, for a retailer, technically you don't have to hold the stock in your store anymore. And therefore you can drop ship it, which means that you can offer more variety in products, open up a whole different world, which was not available. And I think that's a bit interesting for Alfamart, hopefully in the future that we can bring products closer to the customer because we're closer to the last mile. And I think thirdly is maybe seeing it in a bit of a competitor's perspective. It's better that they would shop with us through different channels with us than, another channel from our competitor. So try to capture as many channels that we can, so we can understand our customers better and serve them better, which eventually would also lower our cost to serve towards them, making it more affordable for them. So I think to that there's an impact for our customers as well.
And Ralph mentioned one of the key kind of benefits we've seen from this online to offline integration, being able to offer that endless aisle, even when you're in store. From our customers and retailers, endless aisle is one of the potential profit and revenue growth areas we've seen our retailers work with. And the other side of it is pick up in store, where they're in the store. Are you able to capture their attention enough that they add to their basket that they're already picking up on? So that's great points, Ralph.
I think also, sorry, Shuchi, to add, referring to the previous question, as you guys mentioned, there are certain segments that are just willing to spend, even though, because they're already in that mindset that I'm already paying for this convenience. So just add these items to my basket. And just given with all these items available, it easily increases the basket size, or just because you have that customer loyalty, right?
Absolutely, agree completely. And I think the benefits of having this integration far outweigh any trade-offs. But one trade-off I did want to probe further with all three of you is around data privacy. And the fact is that if you need to be able to provide this seamless, frictionless service, you need to be able to identify the customer uniquely. So we also know that over 2/3 of customers actually have an issue sharing their personal data, especially more so in the last 6 months. So what's your take on how do you balance this trade-off? And open to all of you or any of you who would like to address this.
I'm happy to. I've actually done quite a lot with customer privacy, GDPR, and obviously with IDFA. What I would say is I think that customers are now aware that their data is used for myriad purposes and even being monetized. And I think what customers probably don't understand necessarily, some of this data is actually used in their favor or, as a service to them. And so I feel that with IDFA and, with a lot of restrictions that are coming around privacy, customers are going to see that they're going to be targeted for ads that aren't necessarily relevant to them and effectively spammed. I don't know if anybody was in Europe during GDPR, but right when GDPR officially went live, resulted in probably what must have been like the largest spamathon ever, because all of these companies wanted to make sure these people wanted to opt in or opt out, and so it actually resulted in way more, kind of like unnecessary emails coming through, which was quite hilarious and ironic. But I think what people don't, it's important to have, it's important to be in charge of your data and to kind of be aware of what it's being used for. But I think it's also about incentivizing or motivating your customers to share data that's going to be relevant. And it's really about kind of creating really good experiences. I'm very happy to share my data so long as I'm going to be targeted in a relevant fashion and I'm not going to be annoyed. And again, I think if you understand your segments and how they prefer to be communicated with, whether it's via SMS, whether it's email, whether it's in-app, and again, in understanding who your segments are and how they prefer to be communicated with, I think that is critical. And I think, again, it's kind of finding a way to, get people to give you their information. Perhaps maybe they're in a loyalty program. And again, with some of these loyalty programs, it's even extending it out to various partners. As a Bonvoy member, again, they have a fantastic loyalty program. And, it's one that you can see very quickly the rewards that you're getting for it. And a lot of people are very happy to give their information for that. And I believe they have a partnership with Hertz. So, and again, you get discounts and you get to earn points for it. And anybody who has Bonvoy status understands the value of having high status because it comes with great benefits. So you're happy for that data to be shared between those two partners.
Perfect. Scott, your thoughts on it? You're on mute if you're speaking.
Yeah, sorry. No, let me pass to Ralph on this one first and come back to me. That's okay. Sorry.
Ralph, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I think it's always important to respect the data privacy laws and ensure that data is protected of our customers. I think second, also what worries a lot of organizations is what happens if my data gets hacked, right? How do I ensure that my customers can't be traced, or because it blows up once the media knows about it, it blows up in exponentially. I think thirdly, so having that right data, as I suppose as Danielle mentioned, is so an experience that I saw back in consulting before was when we were in telco, when I was in a telco engagement, we were able to figure out based on customer behavior, based on the data that they shared, because we asked them for that data, we were able to offer them, better products and better services through upselling and cross-selling. And this is not with the intention to try to increase more sales.
Is it just me or is Ralph breaking?
Yeah, I can't hear him right now. If I can jump in since I passed the ball.
Sure, go ahead, Scott.
In Australia, they call that a handball, where you suddenly pass it to the other person. Ralph, you're back. Do you want to keep going? You got out for a minute there.
Where was that? Where did you guys miss me on?
It was about the last 2 minutes. You kind of cut out when you're talking about the telco experience.
Yes, it was right at the telco.
Yeah, so I think with the telco experience, so it's kind of give and take, because we request data from the customer, but at the same time, the customer is aware that we're going to use this data to identify what kind of better products and services we can offer them. And this is not just a take from increasing our revenues or reducing our expenses, but it's more of being able to offer our customer a better product, a better service that is either more affordable for them or can equip them better with doing their business. I think that's where it comes down to, just having essential data that serve our customers better, but at the same time ensuring that you still respect data privacy laws.
Yeah, my solutions that I've experienced with, we don't touch personally identifiable information, and we don't have anything related to credit card data, PCI requirements, things like that. But there's always been the concerns over cloud SaaS-based solutions, which is what we are. But I think more retailers are used to dealing with that over the past few years, so they're more trusting if you have the right qualifications and processes in place to protect the data. The only personal experience I have lately is just I bought a new mattress from Sleeping Duck, the online bed in a box, and it's amazing how many mattress ads I'm getting when I'm scrolling through social media now. But I'm like, I've already bought the mattress, guys. I don't need more ads about your version. I'm not going to buy another one.
Oh, are they targeting you for their mattress? It's a simple ad suppression play, and it always drove me crazy, because if you've bought an expensive item, the last thing you want is to keep getting retargeted for it. Or even worse, if they're giving you a discount, and you're like, mate, I just paid for this, and it was a lot.
I know, think of the marketing dollars they're wasting there.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
Sleeping Duck is who we bought. Sorry for the ad, but now I'm getting them from Akosa and all these other mattresses are trying to target me. I'm like, I don't need another mattress.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, no, exactly. It's like they should almost have something flagged once you've made the purchase to let everybody know that you're no longer in that segment.
That's right.
Awesome.
Great ball passing there. Thank you for that, Scott and Ralph and Danielle. That in fact leads me to the next question that we had, which is that we're seeing data as the new currency. And the fact is that partnership ecosystems are the next frontier that we're seeing. A partnership between retail with telcos. You spoke, Ralph, of the telco example, with governments, especially around national identities, with other financial services conglomerates as well, right? And the power of that is basically being able to monetize that data and bring out new service models that we're talking about. So how do you see data partnership ecosystems changing the future of retail? Maybe Danielle, if I could pass to you and then we could just hand around.
Well, I mean, as I'd mentioned with, say, Bonvoy and Hertz, it's an obvious partnership that works really well, so long as the customer is benefiting from it. And I think so long as there is a level of transparency, I don't see that there's a problem. Again, it's really thinking about, as a customer, is it going to make sense? And it kind of drives back to that context question. In terms of, when we say monetizing data, I think, with this even, it's more with these data partnerships, it's really kind of finding other people that might, be interested in complementary products or services. So again, if you're doing travel, like Bonvoy, Hertz would be kind of a natural component to it. But perhaps maybe with retail, again, if it's personal care, perhaps maybe it's spas or onsens. And again, it's really finding, what would drive, or add value, and then also kind of drive more interest and engagement from the customer.
Perfect. Ralph or Scott, any of you want to add to that?
Yeah. So I was thinking, so in terms of data monetization, I think there have been a lot of firms that, especially retailers that work with suppliers, that try to figure out how they can create like a vendor portal where they give insights to their suppliers of, what products work well or what products don't work well. I think for many, it's a dream. There are still businesses that have been able to achieve it, but I'd like to commend more of, the shopping platforms like Shopee that have been able to do this because they have a greater scale of number of customers, number of suppliers. And I think to that extent, they're able to a certain extent monetize it because they're able to sell advertisements to certain customers or advertising space to certain suppliers. I think that's where more of the monetization comes in. I think it's much less with, for example, kind of like the sleeping duck experiment that Scott mentioned, right? If you've got all this data and you try to monetize it, but you're not targeting your customers properly, at the end of the day, you might still lose your customers, right? Or they might not have a good customer experience. So I think it's a tricky approach.
Yeah, I think one experience from Australia that I don't know, I wonder whether it's going to happen in retailers in Asia in the future as well. But yeah, some of the retailers have the big retailers in Australia have very strong loyalty programs, right? But what's been interesting to watch over the last 5 to 7 years is they've actually spun out those loyalty program businesses to be separate standalone businesses from it started out as your supermarket and your grocery loyalty points. It expanded because it was a conglomerate who owned multiple stores. So they expanded those. They call it on the West Farmers side, they call it flyby. They expanded flybys across the other banners. But now any retailer can take advantage of that and join the program and use the loyalty. You've seen that with the other major retailer in Australia as well on the Woolworths side. And if you look at Asia with some of the large conglomerates, they've started those loyalty programs to be able to monetize within their own banners, whether that's the central loyalty or depending on the country, different loyalty programs. I wonder if that's a trend you'll start to see. You can get those points across multiple banners that aren't necessarily related with just, it's the data business that's spun off as its own business unit, providing value to the retailers who subscribe to it.
Yeah, and as we say, I think loyalty is dead, right? It's about engagement now. So exactly what you're saying, Ralph and Scott, about therefore being able to engage across a spectrum of touch points, not just with retail, but across. Right? A great conversation there. We've been talking externally about how retail companies can go better to market, partner better, and so on. But what about internally? How do you think that they should build a more data-centric mindset with the right technologies, the right operating model, the talent, working towards actually using that data? And open to anybody who'd like to answer.
I think it always comes down to ROI. And again, at the end of the day, everybody shows up to work to generate money for the business so that they get paid. And, if something is working, you get conversions or you get a higher customer lifetime value or average order value. And again, I think it's working towards that. Every department will be slightly different, but it still feeds into what that return on the investment of time, of resource, of money is. And at the end of the day, your results will show up in terms of, customer engagement and ultimately customer conversions.
So what I hear you saying, Danielle, is link the impact of what the individual employee's work is to the financial and the customer outcomes so that they see the final picture.
So I think that always sounds really controversial the way it's said, but it's more about having, so every single business unit will have its own objective or KPI. And again, it feeds into the greater KPI of return on investment.
Yeah.
And so I think it's, so long as everybody is held accountable for, what they're doing and what they're getting back for their efforts. And really, whenever we do anything, it's kind of, why am I doing this? Why do I show up to the gym every day? It's so that I exercise or so that I stay in shape. And again, why am I setting up this campaign? Why am I engaging with this customer? And it's because, a certain proportion of those customers are responding to these engagements. And so I think, it's really looking at that, why am I doing this? And, the proof is in the pudding, which is, your KPI, which drives into ROI.
Correct. Thoughts, Scott or Ralph?
Yeah, I would just say, from kind of the software vendor perspective, you're always trying to help your customers, your retailers understand why would they want to engage with you on a project. And I think that's the way that retailers need to look at it. It's what Danielle said first, the return on investment. There are lots of different kinds of solutions out there. Retailers can also develop solutions internally on their own, or they can do it manually. Just you throw more people at a problem. What is the best way for you to solve those problems? There's many more digital capabilities and abilities to solve those problems today than there were before. So you also need to get educated a little bit. What is the secret sauce to your retail business that you can't outsource to somebody else, versus where are the pieces where there's commercially available digital analytic software that can help you free up your resources to do the things that are most important to your brand with the appropriate return on investment.
Agreed. It's about maximizing the potential. Absolutely. Ralph, any thoughts from you? And especially if you have anything for our audience on technologies that organizations need to put in place for data and analytics to work properly.
So I think firstly, how I understand what's really important is having that executive support, whether it's coming from the board or the steerco, and that they understand the value that there is with analytics or the data, how you can leverage that data. Without that support, it's really hard to move forward. I think second also is within that organization, if you're running an old organization and you're adding IT solutions to it, it'll just end up being an expensive old organization. Right? So the organization also has to be to an extent ready to innovate, to want to be more efficient, etc. And thirdly, I think in terms of analytic opportunities, I think many organizations have teams already that they're doing to a certain extent some sort of analytics, but you don't always have to start from scratch. You can always tap into other partners, for example, whether it's Aptos in this case, or other providers that have some leverage and experience and insights on how you can improve certain things better. The easiest, if you want to get into AI, there's also, I think it's a platform called Kaggle, where you basically set up a project and basically different data analytics companies can come up with a solution. It's basically like it's basically like a kickstart, but for analytics projects that organizations use. That's how I see it.
Absolutely. And Ralph, you've been driving this journey at Alfamart, right? So absolutely, it's big. We do have a question from the audience, and maybe we have time for addressing that. So the question is, with the hyperinflationary impact post-COVID and Russia-Ukraine conflict, how do you see the minimum value proposition of online channel evolving vis-a-vis physical stores? Anyone want to take that?
I think it's an interesting point, and that inflation is going to be hitting many different types of retailers. How do you, and online versus in store, do you have a strategy for how you have to pass on some of those cost increases, those inflationary strategies? Do you have the data you need to be able to make a decision related to that? Do you know that your online consumers are less price sensitive than your certain store consumers? At the same time, you can't, just passing on cost to your customers is not going to keep those customers loyal to you. So you need to have an understanding for where is their opportunity to be as competitive as possible, where it's most important, while also making sure that your business is still able to financially perform while your vendors and suppliers are passing on cost increases to you.
Super. Any other thoughts?
So I think again, it's coming down to the data online in terms of how people are behaving. Many years ago, I worked with a famous airline that had two really bad crashes within like a very short succession of one another, like 4 weeks. And we had turned the campaigns off. And I remember the very first one, like the plane disappears, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is going to be really difficult to rebound off of. And we shut it off for 2 weeks. And then when we turned the campaigns on, it didn't really affect it too much. And some of it actually was down to, the AI, the solution and the learning of the actual solution to optimize towards end result. And I think that's the other thing is that, if you have a product or a service, it's about finding the right audience for it. And that is where machine learning and AI does tend to shine. I think, when you start to look at in-store experiences, it does kind of come down to, knowing your audience and testing different things. And again, bringing in that data online and offline. I think one of the things that we do at SaaS for CI360 is combining all of that data and really looking at, kind of what happens offline as well as online, and understanding, that at a customer level so that you can really break things down and see, whether, this is having as much of an impact as we think. Very often we're more worried about the impact than actually what happens after the fact. And again, because it was my experience with that one airline that it really didn't affect it very much at all, which I was shocked because, to have it happen like that, common sense would have said this is really going to affect us. And surprisingly, it didn't. So I think sometimes, we're more worried about, kind of what's going on rather than looking at the data.
That's a learning for sure. Ralph, any closing comments from you? We're just on top of the time.
So I think it's a very tough question to answer, but I think these kind of circumstances will always happen, and I think with the start of the pandemic, it was kind of the reminder to make our businesses more efficient. And to that certain extent, I think what we saw is that there was actually the pandemic accelerated online, right? Because people were not able to go to the stores, online actually grew in sales. People weren't even like for example, our stores, we weren't even able to, for some stores, have people in the stores to serve our customers. So how do we serve them in a different way, which could be through online, or whether it's like WhatsApp or WeChat or Fiverr. That's how I see it.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. I think it's been a great conversation, and that was the one question we had taken. If there are any more questions, please do funnel them in. We can, I'm sure that all of us can jump in offline and share our responses. But this has been an extremely engaging conversation. Thank you for your time, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. So up next, we have a keynote by Felicity Burrows, SI Alliance Manager, Asia Pacific for Fivetran, on must-haves for your retail data strategy.
Hi, I'm Felicity, an Alliance Manager here at Fivetran based in Singapore. And today I'll give you a short synopsis on the must-haves for your retail data strategy and how having the right data strategy and right data stack will leave more time for you to focus on work that adds more value to your business. Ask yourself, are you truly data-driven? So there's a huge opportunity for retail analytics to make a massive difference to retail businesses today. Data access, transparency, and literacy are absolute must-haves. And Fivetran can help you to unlock the full opportunity by automating the process of getting your data from A to Z in the fastest, most secure, reliable, and simple way possible so that you can focus on delivering insights and driving data-driven decision-making. How can an effective retail data strategy help you? AI will provide a lot of advantages in remaining competitive in an ever-increasing competitive landscape by enabling the ability to engage with customers on a completely different level. Because a lot of retailers aren't taking advantage of maximizing their data, there's definitely a competitive opportunity to fly ahead if you do. Typical use cases for retailers include point of sales, supply chain and operations. Being able to predict what and how much you will sell will make you better at ordering. It could be inventory, such as how much do you have to buy of a certain product. Allocation could be budget allocation, or it could also be how much do we carry in stores. And then pricing, competitor analysis, which could optimize pricing models, and customer analysis, which can include customer 360s that drive personalization. So essentially, by leveraging AI, using predictive and prescriptive analytics, retailers will be able to supercharge the efficiency of. When it comes to retail businesses, data is only ever increasing. Challenges with that includes having access to data, the need to pivot to customer needs in real time, so speed of insight is key, and having a single source of truth. The key solution to solving these challenges is to pull all of your data into one place so that you can do your analytics and use machine learning to make sense of the data across web, mobile, point of sale, etc. Adopting automation and having the right data stack and data strategy will leave more time for you to focus on work that adds more value to the business. So must-have number one is to automate your data pipelines. Must-have number two is data transparency. What is the value of your data if it isn't actionable? Data transparency drives accountability, innovation, and more accurate, faster decision-making. Transparency means everyone in the business has access to the same data, not siloed versions of the truth. If your data is stored in silos and not connected, it doesn't have any real value. Capturing that data, unlocking it, and using it to its full potential is key to success. Companies that don't use automation have separate versions of events and profiles and no single source of truth is unhealthy and it can kill your business. So the key is to get all of the data you need from all sources, put it in one place so you can see it, analyze it, activate it, and conduct your analytics. Organizations must make data available to everyone. It's important to build upon a tech stack that can unify disparate sources and share data seamlessly to empower teams to innovate and adjust their efforts on the fly. Data literacy develops the skills that drives action. It ensures that people have a fundamental understanding of data and how to analyze it, and how to use it to make decisions and take action. Does everyone in the organization have access? Is there a single source of truth? Omnichannel agility and digital transformation have become key factors of retail success. Going forward, insights from new and numerous data sources must be readily available for retailers as they make decisions that help them remain relevant as well as outpace the competition. So how can Fivetran help you to achieve your retail data strategy? So for must-have number one, Fivetran can help you by automating your data pipelines. On the left-hand side, you've got that classical ETL approach where you extract the data, you perform the transformation all outside of the data warehouse and load that transformed data in the warehouse and run, in this use case, a BI tool on top of that. On the right-hand side, this is how Fivetran approaches the same problem. So instead of doing ETL, we're doing an ELT approach. So we extract the data from the source, load that straight into the data warehouse, and then from there, you can start doing those transformations. What that allows us to do is fully coordinate that piece of the extract and load into the data warehouse. We have pre-built connectors that get all of these different data sources, bring all of that data into the warehouse, and now you can start transforming that data in the warehouse itself. And if something changes, all you do is redo that final transformation. So you don't need to go all the way back to the extract piece and transform and load again and adjust. So it's taking a couple of steps out of that process, which is obviously beneficial when you're doing retail business at scale. For must-have number 2, getting all of your data in one place so there's a single source of truth. The main problem that Fivetran looks to solve is centralizing data, pulling data from the number of sources where it lives. So it could be a CRM like Salesforce, a loyalty rewards app, point of sales, database, and then putting it into a single source of truth. This is a very complex operation. Fivetran can help with taking data from all those different operational systems, cloud apps, databases, files, events, etc., and moving that data into a data warehouse. And once it's in there, you have access to all of your data in a centralized location. So you can use that data to do internal analytics, AI, machine learning, whatever that may be, to drive insights to make data-driven decisions. For must-have number 3, extracting data from numerous data sources and getting that readily available for retailers so that they can make decisions. Using Fivetran can streamline the process of getting data into the warehouse so you can sit a BI tool on top of that and start to do analytics. Fivetran is a fully managed data pipeline as a service. There's no maintenance, no configuration, no coding, and it's super easy to use. We have almost 200 connectors out of the box that you can plug and play with. The majority of those do come with predefined schemas, and you can get that set up in less than 5 minutes. You can really take away that manual labor that comes with building ETL pipelines. And we do all of this automation, scalability, and security with an incredible amount of reliability and support. We have over 200 engineers that are ensuring your data is where it needs to be, when it needs to be, with a 99.9% platform uptime, syncing massive amounts of data and maintaining an incredible number of sources for over 4,000 customers globally. So to give you a couple of retail case study examples, looking at one of our clients, Paul Hewitt, the problem they had was that they needed to outgrow old practices. The analytics team were manually entering data into spreadsheets, which was a time-consuming and error-prone process. It took them a week and a half to update and consolidate all of the different data sources into one dashboard. The objective was to transform into a data-driven business by implementing a solid data strategy. The solution was to combine the best tools. With Databricks providing the data lake, Power BI as the visualization tool, the final piece to complete the modern data stack was automating the pipeline from the data sources. Fivetran was set up immediately, automatically loading the data from multiple advertising channel APIs to better inform the marketing spend. The outcome? Future-proof architecture. Paul Hewitt's single source of truth now accelerates the path to better reporting and enables data democratization by enabling non-technical people to access insights that inform better decision-making. The data setup Paul Hewitt now has in place enabled them to quickly shift their business from around 50% traditional retail to 100% e-commerce when the pandemic hit. Another client of ours, Douglas, and a decreased workload and manual report creation saves time of one full-time data engineer. Fivetran has saved 30% of time, which is spent previously on building and maintaining data pipelines. The modern data stack has allowed next-level assessment of digital campaigns, improved market intelligence resulting in more detailed insight into products and pricing trends. Fivetran is the part of the data stack which automated their data pipeline piece. We put the data into Snowflake, and Douglas was able to generate insights using Tableau as their BI tool. We have many more case studies that you can take a look at on our website. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We are out of time. If you do have any questions, please catch me over at the Fivetran booth.
All right. So yeah, that's a wrap for Felicity's presentation. And as she said, if you have any questions on her presentation or Fivetran solutions, you can catch her or any of her colleagues over at the Fivetran booth, and then they'd be happy to assist you. We actually have one question here for Fivetran: how to ensure data transparency and yet ensure data safety. I'm inviting to the stage Girish from the Fivetran team to answer this. Girish, are you there? Okay, I think Girish has problems with logging into this stage, but no worries. Girish and the Fivetran team will just answer Yin Chi Lee's question by commenting under his question over at the Q&A tab. So up next, we have a presentation by Sherrie Ling, Team Head Asia Pacific Client Success Team, iClick Interactive Asia Group Limited, on winning the wallet of young Chinese consumers, how private domain traffic is shaping future border e-commerce strategy in China. Go ahead, Sherrie.
Yes, thank you, Jack. Hello, everyone. This is Sherrie from iClick. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we are going to talk about what strategy we should use to target the big China imports cross-border e-commerce market. The topics we are going to cover include a general view of cross-border e-commerce market in China and the important role of private domain traffic. Also, we will explain to you why a strategy of using mini program will be important, especially to Generation MC. Lastly, we'll explain you the cross-border smart retail solution, iSmart Go. First, let's take a look at the performance of cross-border markets in China. In 2020, we see that the number of people in China that buy products and goods from overseas online is 1,518 million people. The size that you see is very big, which is even 1.5 times the population of Philippines or Vietnam. Beauty is the product that most of the people searching in cross-border e-commerce, and many of the Chinese is looking for merchants coming from US and also Asia. Looking at the size of the China cross-border e-commerce market, it was 470 billion USD in 2020 and estimated to be 545 billion USD in 2021. Particularly, when we look at smart retail markets in China, we see 116% increase, which hinted a need to focus on mini program if we want to get a good seat in China's e-commerce market. Actually, in face of pandemic, many enterprises in China already largely accelerating and increasing their budget for digital transformation. Therefore, if you are planning or already entered the China market, you probably need to rethink about your digital strategy in China. Here you can see that there are many examples of international brands switching to smart e-commerce in China under pandemic achieved significant results, including new traffic and also huge increase in purchase and sales. When you want to do cross-border e-commerce in China, many enterprises may thinking between joining e-commerce platforms like Tmall or building their own mini program. While many of us choosing sites like Tmall for business, current research reveals that private e-commerce like mini program is experiencing high GMV growth rate with a market average of 16.7%. Market like beauty even achieving over 70% growth. Nearly 80% of the Chinese said that they did purchase from mini program in 2021, and even 70% of Generation C purchased cross-border in mini program partly for luxury. More interesting thing is that from recent data, it shows that Chinese particularly keen on purchase through mini program when they are buying for real festivals like New Year or Mid-Autumn festivals. Here we see that mini program do have its role in the market. While operating store on integrated e-commerce channel is comparatively faster and easier, they have their pain points, which are obstacles in targeting Chinese who increasingly looking for service personalization and brand communication. For example, these channels require higher costs to draw new and retain customers. Also, clients' relationship management for brand loyalty is difficult, and we have no access for audience data in deep to work out your own customer management system. This is why in current years, many brands, including local and international brands, spending their time in investing on their own WeChat mini program. WeChat mini program are sub-applications within WeChat. Mini program is easy to use, and you can have your brand specialized design plus linking to offline slot and promotion if you have. Also, you have your own audience data to play around for personalized ads and brand communication. In 2020, we see mini program performance is very appealing, with over 100% growth in GMV. There is 255% increase in self-operated mini program and 154% increase in commodity transactions. Mini program also recorded 414 million daily active users. Though 2021 data is not yet published, but we can foresee much higher increase in these numbers. While integrated e-commerce platforms allow pay ads to draw traffic and product browsing, mini programs do more on top of these. Mini programs which under the WeChat ecosystem can help you connect your WeChat OA for brand communication, doing ads and word of mouth through Moments and Tencent ad system, and integrating with WeChat Pay for payment. The private data that you received in mini program allows you to define users into different labels and work out a personalized targeting strategy and content for different labels, which at the end boosts up brand loyalty and also willingness to repurchase. So, how should we start having our own private e-commerce platforms? One of the options is to work with us. We iClick developed our SaaS-based solution for you to help you start doing your cross-border e-commerce business in China. Now, let's spend about 2 minutes to watch a video about our iSmart Go solution.
To China's booming market, e-commerce tops the agenda for enterprises in search of smarter ways to enter China and to gain market share. But their efforts to leverage mainstream cross-border e-commerce sites like Tmall Global or JD Worldwide often falter when faced with high-cost customer acquisition and retention, or when they lack ownership of private traffic data. This is where iClick's iSmart Go comes in, a one-stop cross-border smart retail solution. iSmart Go uses a mini program that leverages on the WeChat ecosystem to help sell cross-border goods to China more quickly and effectively. Mini programs are now broadly used in China, while overseas companies can benefit cross-border e-commerce with its easy-to-use interface, fast track to initiate business in China, and also its private traffic data management that makes scaling effortless. New merchants can use the powerful, flexible SaaS-based iSmart Go platform to set up digital front stores with alluring product displays and promotional activities, such as group buying, flash sales, and coupon giveaways. iSmart Go is borderless and seamless, providing comprehensive cross-border e-commerce services covering brand exposure, mini program development, and advertising placement. Its all-in-one payment integration supports the currencies of Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, and other global regions. Its logistics management brings you an end-to-end supply chain from transaction to distribution. Our all-rounded advertising solution helps you to venture through and maximize the efficacy of the many ad types available on the Tencent ad marketplace. Our private traffic data management service supports in-depth analysis on user life cycles, sales performance, and marketing promotion effectiveness. Omnichannels like WeChat are the new retail norm. iSmart Go is your key to unlock your full business potential. As China's leading omnichannel marketing technology company, iClick goes beyond digital innovation with its enterprise and marketing cloud platform. It offers integrated full-cycle consumer solutions that help marketers and enterprises connect with China's fast-changing market and make smarter operational decisions to harness its vast business potential.
So I think the video gave you all a pretty good idea of our cross-border e-commerce solution. And here are some offerings we included in our iSmart Go. Basically, it covers all services that you will need in building your own mini program. So if you're interested, do let us know. Last but not the least, I would like to talk a bit about us, iClick. We are a Nasdaq-listed leading China digital marketing cloud service company. We have more than 600 million USD billing in 2020, and we worked with more than 300 MNC in the world. We have a lot more Chinese insights to share, so if you're interested into tapping into China market, feel free visiting our booth after this section for more information. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sherrie, for that great presentation. Again, as Sherrie said, if you have any questions for her or in regards to the iClick Interactive Team solutions, you can catch Sherrie and the rest of her colleagues over at their booth at the booth section. Thanks again, Sherrie.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we have a fireside chat between Danielle West, Principal Business Solutions Manager at SAS Southeast Asia, and Regan Yang, CEO of Digital Alchemy, on ROI, your North Star for orchestrating great customer experiences. So over to you, Danielle, Regan.
Regan, did you want to introduce yourself with a few words?
Hi, I'm Regan. I've been, well, my party trick is that I started life as a zoologist. And I ended up in marketing somehow. So I've been in marketing for about 20 odd years now. And, you know, a lot of that time has been on the data side. In fact, most of that time has been on the data side. So I'm an analyst. The company, you know, has a data analytics background. So we're really focused on using the data to drive marketing and ensuring that we have the reporting and all of the things that you need in place to make sure that you can measure that, which kind of is what we're going to talk about today. So.
Absolutely. And I'm totally going to ask you more about your zoology work when I next see you now. I have no idea. That's fascinating. So I guess to kick it off, this is kind of a burning question that I've actually kind of thought about throughout my career as well in marketing and digital. Why does so much of the marketing budget actually get spent without any accountability?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And I remember talking to a CMO of one of the large Australian companies, and he said to me, it's amazing. A marketer can spend $1 million on a marketing campaign, with no investment criteria, some vague ROI measures, vague. Whereas, if you wanted to spend that money in IT or in, retail distribution, you'd have to build a whole business case around it, and there'd have to be project plans and da-da-da-da. So, I think historically marketers have been able to get away with spending large amounts of money with vague accountability to it. And I think even when I look at, what marketers do today, I mean, there's an order of magnitude more accountability in marketing today than there was, say, 20 years ago. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, when I worked in banking 20 years ago, we would blow out $3 million on a campaign and have no idea whether it worked or not. And I used to joke that, back in those days in banking, we used to measure the success of our campaigns based on 3 criteria. Did it go out on time? Did we like the creative? And did anybody complain? And if we didn't get any of those, we deemed the thing a success. So there's been a lot of movement towards accountability in marketing, but I think there's still a way to go. I still see a lot of organizations holding themselves accountable to open rates and click-through rates and views and likes and things like that. And they're not ROI. There's some forward measure or some upstream measure of a potential ROI, but you've really got to get down to, did you sell something? Did you save the customer? Did the customer actually exhibit the behavior that you set out to try to get them to do? And I think that is still lacking. And I think that creates enormous opportunity to optimize marketing if you can do that.
Well, why do you think people are so hung up on, say, likes or open rates as opposed to the actual? I mean, do you think it's the inability to kind of string all of those metrics together towards, the end of the funnel, or what do you think causes that?
Well, the practical side of me says it's just difficult. You know, if you do a Facebook campaign or you do, a Google ad campaign, it's sometimes difficult to trace it all the way through to the purchase. And so, we stop at the furthest easy measure, if you like. The cynic in me says that sometimes people don't want to know what the real result is, because that might be uncomfortable. But I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. But what I found is, when we do go to the effort and we do move from the furthest or the closest easy measure right through to actual sale or actual customer behavior, it gives you quite a different view of what's actually going on.
And I mean, that would kind of come down to attribution, wouldn't it?
Right. And there's no, I mean, attribution, there's an entire science around attribution. It's not easy, but it fundamentally, in my experience in actually seeing it done well, it can fundamentally change the decisions you make about where you place, your money in terms of marketing. For example, one of the great case studies, and I've seen this in, with my own eyes, is remarketing and retargeting, where, organizations spend lots of money retargeting and remarketing to people, when they go to their websites and stuff like that. And they'll usually set a boundary on that. So I'll retarget this person for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it might be. And I will retarget them, only once every week, and that's how they kind of control the cost. But even within that, there's a huge amount of wastage, retargeting people that have already bought your product.
We actually talked about that earlier today, funny enough, because it's so bizarre how you're not able to suppress the audience once they've been in and completed. Right.
So that sort of, the key is in that online to offline integration. And, I've seen use cases and I've seen, where we've done this with clients where they've saved 30% of their retargeting budget. But that, the future, the thing, the gorilla in the room is the online to offline data integration. It's difficult, it's not easy, it's complicated, but it's the thing that stitches all of this together.
Well, it's not as hard now as historically it was once before. I mean, there are, obviously, like our solution does it. There are solutions out there that can bring in offline data and then effectively stitch it into your online profile as well to create a 360 view.
Right, it's possible. I mean, it's gone from the impossible to the possible. And we've, we've worked with SaaS with a number of clients to actually do it. So, there are platforms around, and SaaS is one of them where you are actually able to bring the data together. But it's still surprising how many organizations just don't. They just are comfortable with it being in different places.
So, and again, because you just said that you're working with quite a lot of customers as well, like who do you think that you've worked with, either with SaaS or without SaaS, that's doing it well, and particularly in the retail space?
Putting me on the spot now.
Sorry, I know. I didn't even. I was just like, I'm curious.
Of all of our clients, now you're asking me to choose my favorite, and
and they're going to be later going, "Hey."
But to be perfectly honest, I actually really struggle to find an organization that does it really well. Some organizations do it really well as a point solution.
Yeah.
Right. Some of them do it really, like the telcos do it really well as a point solution, through the purchase basket or, something like that. But very few organizations, in fact, none that I can think of, actually do it well universally.
Yeah.
At scale. And someone once said to me, the future is here. It's just unevenly distributed.
Do you think that's an internal problem then with like the different stakeholders and business units and how, companies are structured?
I think it is. I mean, partly because, in a lot of organizations, the digital and the traditional marketing organizations are different.
Yeah.
And they compete. So, they don't necessarily want to put the data together because they're both claiming the same thing. So I think to some extent it is a structural issue. I think also the more universal the integration becomes, the more stakeholders you have in it. And so it is easy to put together, you know, a point solution around, you know, around a single use case or a number of use cases, but to put it across, you know, the entire business is more difficult. But we are beginning to see organizations take that first step, which is bring the data into a single platform. And that's beginning to happen now. So I still have hope.
And do you think like just setting an ROI target or kind of using ROI effectively as the overarching, you know, kind of performance measurement would be ideal for organizations? I know, I mean, for me, that's always kind of, if you're not getting a strong or, you know, a good ROI on something, it's not working. Because if it was, the customers would be engaging and would be converting. I think
it's one of the measures. But I think we need to think more broadly than having single measures. And you know, the reason for that is if you, particularly in digital media, you know, if you're using, you know, Facebook Messenger, if you're using Line, if you're using WhatsApp, if you're using, you know, email, for example, the actual channel cost is very low.
Yep.
So you need a very low response rate to create a positive ROI. So if you only have an ROI measure, it's not, you know, in a digital world, it's not very good at controlling and making sure that you are sending customers the most relevant message, because it's very easy to get an ROI because the send cost is so low. You know, 30 years ago when you were sending out direct mail, people really focused on this stuff because it cost $3 to send it out, right? But these days it costs, you know, a fraction of a cent. And so it's very easy to get an ROI. And I think you need to have more measures than ROI. And we, with a lot of our clients, we use engagement scores as a precursor to ROI, because engagement scores allow you to build service messages. They allow you to build messages that don't sell something today, but start to build that relationship so you can sell something tomorrow. And what we've been able to prove is that the higher the engagement score of a customer, the more likely they are to buy anything.
Okay, which makes sense.
So you have to have this balance between, you know, taking a longer term view and building up engagement and getting that ROI. And the reason that you need to create this tension is because if you only focus on ROI, you will only build campaigns with offers in them. And then
you're taking one step further though, like in terms of the ROI is like the overall investment. Because I know you were saying, well, it's really low to send a Facebook campaign, but it's also taking into account like the time and energy, but also like the MarTech solutions, because businesses will often have a bunch of different solutions in there, which is great because there'll be something new that comes out. But it's kind of, sometimes you'll go into a business and they have like legacy systems that they're paying for, but they're not really generating value, or they're not fully utilizing them to their, you know, their potential.
So I think that there's two issues in what you just said. One is resources, and I've never yet come across a marketing organization that has enough resources. And the problem with that is that lack of resources tends towards large scale campaigns, because it takes as long to build a campaign that blurts out 100,000 communications as it does to build a targeted campaign that blurts out, you know, 5,000, even though, you know, the 5,000 one might be a better campaign and it just takes the same amount of time. So people always default to the 100,000, right? So that's one issue that we see with resourcing, and you need to find ways of breaking that mold. The second issue is we see a lot of organizations that have got, you know, legacy systems, and even not so legacy systems. So they might have Salesforce, they might have Adobe, right? There's truly nothing wrong with any of the platforms. All of the modern marketing automation platforms work. And you know, it's quite surprising when we go into clients. Most of our business these days is around remediation. You know, we don't do a lot of new implementations of Salesforce or Adobe or, you know, or SaaS. What we do is we go into places that have already got it and we fix it, and we make it work and we make it scale. And we encourage clients to sweat the asset, because organizations have this stuff, but they just don't sweat the assets hard enough. And there's an overwhelming temptation to think, oh, if I buy a new platform, I'll be able to, to do this. And, it very rarely works out that way.
So what do you do then to help customers stay focused, or to kind of, when you go in to basically do this remediation, what are you doing to help the customers realize the full potential or value of these solutions?
So we do two things. One, we focus on the data. So a lot of the inhibitors to getting to scale is on the data, and just ensuring that the data from the offline systems or the legacy systems are being plumbed in a way that marketing can be automated. And the second thing we do, so that's scale around automation of the data. And the second thing we do is we work with them on a marketing plan that says, okay, we're going to build 100, 200 campaigns over the next 12 to 18 months. And this is the sequence in which we're going to do it. And here are the resources that we're going to need to get that done. And you just get on and do it. So most organizations would call us in, and we had a big bank here in Thailand, and we were talking about, all of the great things that you can do with marketing automation, and they have a platform. And the head of marketing said to me, he said, I hear you, I understand everything that you've said, but I don't need it. I just need you to help me get to scale. And that I think kind of sums up a lot of frustration that people have around those platforms.
So I think, yeah, I mean, that always seems to be the big struggle, because as you'd said, I think with a lot of platforms, I mean, there are differentiators, but they're not massive, and it's not swapping out one. It tends to be kind of your approach and your process. But this is always where I think, are you kind of really measuring the value that you're getting? Because the other trouble with these platforms is people will say, oh, it's really expensive, or, it costs so much, but it's like, but what are you getting for it in return? And then it kind of comes back to that. How are you measuring this, and what is your, process?
Yeah, I think that, if you don't know how you're going to get value out of it, every platform is expensive. If you have a clear view of how you're going to get value out of it, then it's not that expensive. And, you and I have worked on a number of, cases where it's actually pretty easy to get a return. You don't have to do a lot of things to get a return on your investment. You just need to do them well.
No, exactly. I mean, even like you'd said earlier, just the remarketing. And I think that's something that, we're seeing quite a lot with customers is, just setting up a basic remarketing or ad suppression tends to generate enough value to justify any investment that you have in terms of both the solution as well as, in terms of the consulting services and the implementation services that you guys are offering.
Exactly. And I think, there's an overwhelming temptation to try to do big things. And, I mean, I was in a meeting with a prospect the other day, and the CEO said to me, he said, well, what's really impressive is that you didn't try to sell me any technology. And the platform they've got is not great. It's not great. But I said, we need to sweat this asset first, and then figure out, what you really need. And then, if we need to, we can replace it later. But now we just sweat the asset. And I think the other thing that people will increasingly do is that they'll buy point solutions and they'll plug them together. So this idea, I think, of buying one suite that does absolutely everything, I think that's beginning to sort of fray on the edges. And you might have Salesforce, for your marketing automation. You might have SaaS for your online for your data integration. You might have Adobe for your ad management. And I think the idea of having one platform that does everything,
risky. It's risky. I think because
the platforms themselves are built from acquisitions.
Exactly.
And they've by and large been put together as an acquisition process. And the choices that you make when you're buying a company aren't necessarily the choices you buy when you're buying marketing technology. So So it doesn't even guarantee that they're even good choices. And I think, organizations need to be able to look at, what's the CDP platform that suits me? What's the automation platform that suits me? What's the ad tech platform that suits me? Yeah.
No, absolutely. And again, I think it's the integrations that are made with these acquisitions tend to be the same as the integrations you make before they were acquired.
Exactly. But if you do it, if you do it progressively, then it's much easier to get your ROI. If you spend 3 years implementing the platform, you've got to keep the platform for 10 years to get your money back.
No, for the entire suite, you're absolutely right. So what do you think will be kind of one thing to watch for in retail for the next year? I know it's always tricky to predict the future these days with everything that seems to keep popping up in the news, but
I think what we're seeing with retailers is that they're finding acquisition costs rising. So Google ad costs are rising, performance is falling, because as the economies open up and people actually leave their houses, e-commerce, is what we're seeing is that e-commerce clients are beginning to find it more difficult than they did when everybody was at home and had nothing else to do. And so they're having to work harder on their own customers. And so I think that what we'll see in region over the next probably 12 months to 2 years is a refocus on the customer. And organizations will start to go, we had a client the other day and we looked at their database. They were targeting we identified that they only target a third of their customers. They were so focused on acquisition and active customers that they were churning out all these people that hadn't purchased for 6 months, and they were never talking to them.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh.
And it ended up being, when we did the analysis, it was 70% of the customers that just weren't getting spoken to. So, I think a lot, when acquisition is easy, people focus on acquisition because it's easy and it's sexy. When acquisition is hard, you need to focus on your customers, which is, it's technically more difficult. But that's what I think.
They're already customers. I always feel like it's a re-engagement strategy. Oh, thank you. No, I was just going to say, I think, like you said, it's, missing a trick that it's a re-engagement strategy. These are all already people that are familiar with your brand or your offering. Right.
But it's organizations have sort of gotten addicted to Google advertising and they've gotten very good at it. But the acquisition cost on Google is beginning to rise. And so people will begin to focus on reacquisition of their own customers, retargeting of their own customers. And I think we're going to see a lot more investment into that space over the next couple of years.
Okay. And so that would be one strategy to focus on then, like re-engagement?
Yeah, re-engagement and protecting your own customers, right? Because when it's not so easy to bring new ones in, you've got to be better than the ones that you've got.
Fair. Oh, wow. So I guess like any other parting remarks or comments then around digital, or?
I think, everybody should be keeping an eye on this online to offline integration, because that's really in the future, that's where the rubber is going to hit the road. And the organizations that get that right will be more effective than organizations that continue to operate in silos.
All right. No, I would agree. I think, again, as more people are going outdoors and traveling, it's probably even more critical now to kind of understand where consumers are, whether they're on their phones, on their laptops, or in your stores.
Yeah, it's been easy of late, right? Because everybody's been in one spot. All their devices are in the same room.
Fair.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.